Maria Santos worked as a cleaner at the Golden Palace Casino, one of the most exclusive establishments in the city. Every night she mopped floors, emptied trash bins, and wiped down tables while wealthy patrons gambled away fortunes. She moved through the casino like a shadow, invisible to everyone who mattered. The casino belonged to Vincent Romano, a powerful mafia boss who controlled half the city's underground operations. Vincent was known for his sharp suits, cold eyes, and ruthless business tactics. At 35, he had built an empire through fear and respect. Women threw themselves at him constantly, but he rarely paid attention to anyone for more than a night. Maria had worked at the casino for 2 years. She was 26, with long dark hair that she always kept tied back and warm brown eyes that seemed to notice everything. She lived in a small apartment with her sick mother and younger brother, sending most of her earnings home to support them. The job at the casino paid well enough to keep her family afloat, even if it meant working in dangerous territory. Every evening, Maria arrived at exactly 10 o'clock and left at 6 in the morning. She had perfected the art of being invisible. She knew which corners to clean when important meetings were happening, which rooms to avoid when tensions ran high, and how to disappear completely when violence erupted. Vincent rarely acknowledged the staff beyond a nod to his managers. He spent his nights in the VIP section, conducting business deals and entertaining guests. From her position cleaning nearby tables, Maria often overheard conversations about money laundering, territory disputes, and rival families. She never reacted, never showed interest, and certainly never repeated what she heard. One particularly busy Friday night, the casino buzzed with energy. High-stakes poker games ran in multiple rooms, and champagne flowed freely among the wealthy guests. Maria worked quietly in the background, emptying ashtrays and replacing tablecloths between games. Vincent sat at his usual corner table in the VIP lounge, surrounded by his most trusted associates. Tony Marcelli, his right-hand man, whispered updates about their latest shipment from the docks. Across from them sat Frank DeLuca, a rival family member trying to negotiate peace after a recent territorial dispute. The meeting grew heated as Frank demanded compensation for lost revenue. Vincent's jaw tightened, and his fingers drummed against the table, a sign that those close to him knew meant trouble. The conversation escalated until Frank made the mistake of questioning Vincent's authority in front of his men. In one fluid motion, Vincent stood and grabbed Frank by the collar. The entire VIP section fell silent as he pressed the man against the wall. Frank's face turned red as Vincent's grip tightened around his throat. "Nobody questions my authority in my own establishment," Vincent growled, his voice low and dangerous. Maria watched from across the room while polishing glasses behind the bar. She had witnessed Vincent's anger before, but something about his controlled fury both frightened and fascinated her. Unlike the other staff members who looked away during such moments, she found herself unable to turn away from his intense presence. Frank gasped for air and nodded frantically. Vincent released him and straightened his suit jacket as if nothing had happened. Frank stumbled toward the exit with his bodyguards, clearly shaken by the encounter. As the tension in the room subsided, Vincent's eyes swept across the space and landed on Maria for the briefest moment. She quickly looked down at the glass in her hands, pretending to focus on a stubborn water spot. When she glanced up again, he had already turned back to his conversation with Tony. That small moment of eye contact sent an unexpected shiver through Maria's body. She had always been careful to avoid drawing attention from dangerous men like Vincent, knowing that getting involved with the wrong people could destroy her family's safety. Yet something about his intense gaze lingered in her mind for the rest of her shift. Over the following weeks, Maria noticed Vincent watching her occasionally while she worked. It wasn't obvious, just quick glances when he thought no one was looking. She began to feel self-conscious about her appearance, wondering if there was something wrong with her uniform or if she had made some mistake in her cleaning routine. One evening, while wiping down tables near the poker room, Maria overheard a conversation between two of Vincent's associates about a planned raid on a rival family's warehouse. She knew she shouldn't be listening, but the information could be valuable to someone. As she continued cleaning, she memorized the details without showing any sign of interest. Later that night, as Maria prepared to leave work, she noticed a man following her to the employee parking area. He wore an expensive suit and had the cold eyes of someone accustomed to violence. Her heart raced as she realized this might be connected to what she had overheard earlier. The man approached her slowly, his hand resting inside his jacket. "Maria Santos," he said, his voice carrying a slight accent. "We need to talk." She clutched her purse tighter and looked around the empty parking garage. "I don't know what you want, but I haven't done anything wrong." "Relax," the man said with a cruel smile. "I represent certain parties who are interested in your position at the casino. You hear things, see things. That could be very valuable to the right people." Maria's blood ran cold. She realized this man worked for one of Vincent's rivals and wanted her to spy on the Golden Palace operations. "I'm just a cleaner," she said quietly. "I don't know anything about anyone's business." The man stepped closer, and Maria could smell his expensive cologne mixed with the scent of cigarettes. "Everyone knows something, sweetheart, and someone in your position could learn a lot more if she wanted to." Before Maria could respond, the sound of footsteps echoed through the parking garage. Vincent appeared from behind a pillar, flanked by two of his bodyguards. His expression was deadly calm as he approached them. "Is there a problem here?" Vincent asked, though his tone made it clear he already knew the answer. The rival associate immediately stepped back from Maria, his confidence evaporating. "Just having a friendly conversation, Romano." Vincent's eyes never left the man's face. "In my parking garage, with my employee at 2 in the morning? That doesn't sound very friendly to me." The tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. Maria stood frozen between the two men, understanding that her life had just become much more complicated. She had witnessed something she wasn't supposed to see, and now both sides knew she existed. "Walk away now," Vincent said quietly to the rival associate, "and tell your boss that anyone who approaches my people again will receive a very different kind of conversation." The man hesitated for a moment before nodding and backing toward the garage entrance. "This isn't over, Romano." "Yes, it is," Vincent replied with finality. After the man disappeared into the night, Vincent turned his attention to Maria. For the first time, she was completely alone with the most dangerous man in the city. His dark eyes studied her face as if trying to read her thoughts. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his voice surprisingly gentle. Maria shook her head, not trusting herself to speak. She was overwhelmed by his proximity and the realization that he had just protected her from serious danger. "What did he want?" Vincent continued. "He wanted me to spy on the casino," Maria admitted quietly. "He said my position would be valuable to his people." Vincent nodded thoughtfully. "And what did you tell him?" "Nothing. I told him I was just a cleaner and didn't know anything about anyone's business." A slight smile played at the corner of Vincent's mouth. "Smart answer." He paused for a moment, then added, "But now you're in a difficult position. They know you exist, which means they'll try again." Maria's stomach dropped as the full implications hit her. "What should I do?" "For now, nothing changes. You continue working your shifts as normal. But if anyone approaches you again, you come directly to me. Understood?" She nodded quickly, grateful for his protection, but terrified of what it might cost her. "Good," Vincent said. "Tony will drive you home tonight. From now on, one of my men will escort you to and from work until this situation is resolved." As Maria climbed into the back seat of Tony's black sedan, she caught Vincent watching her through the rear window. Something had shifted between them in that parking garage, though she couldn't quite define what it was. She was no longer just an invisible cleaner. She was under Vincent Romano's protection, which was both the safest and most dangerous place to be in the entire city. The next few weeks passed in a strange routine. True to his word, Vincent assigned different men to escort Maria to and from work each night. She continued her cleaning duties, but now she was hyper-aware of every conversation, every glance, every potential threat around her. Vincent began acknowledging her presence more often. Sometimes it was just a nod when she passed his table. Other times it was a brief, "good evening," when their paths crossed. These small interactions sent butterflies through Maria's stomach, though she tried to convince herself it was just relief at having his protection. During slow nights at the casino, Maria found herself stealing glances at Vincent while he conducted business. She noticed how he commanded respect without raising his voice, how his presence alone could silence an entire room, and how his rare smiles transformed his entire face. She also noticed how other women in the casino tried to capture his attention with revealing dresses and bold approaches, usually receiving nothing more than polite dismissal. One evening, while cleaning the private dining room adjacent to Vincent's office, Maria overheard him on the phone with someone who was clearly giving him problems. His voice remained calm, but she could see the tension in his shoulders and the way his free hand clenched into a fist. "I don't care what your excuses are," Vincent said into the phone. "The shipment was supposed to arrive yesterday. Every day it's delayed costs me money, and when I lose money, people tend to have accidents." The person on the other end must have started making more excuses because Vincent's expression darkened further. "You have 24 hours to fix this, or I'll fix it myself. And trust me, you won't like my solution." He ended the call and slammed the phone down on his desk. Maria quickly looked away, pretending to focus intensely on polishing an already spotless table. She heard Vincent's chair scrape against the floor as he stood up, and footsteps approaching the doorway. "How long have you been in here?" Vincent asked from behind her. Maria's heart jumped, but she kept her voice steady. "About 10 minutes, sir. I can come back later if you need privacy." There was a long pause before Vincent spoke again. "It's fine. Continue with your work." She nodded and moved to the next table, acutely aware of his presence in the doorway. After a few moments, she heard his footsteps retreat back into his office. As the weeks passed, Maria began to notice changes in Vincent's behavior around her. He started asking about her family, remembering details she had mentioned in passing. When she mentioned her mother's medical bills during a brief conversation, an anonymous payment appeared at the hospital the next day. When her younger brother needed new school supplies, Vincent's assistant quietly arranged for everything to be delivered to their apartment. Maria knew she should be grateful, but the growing attention also terrified her. She understood the unspoken rules of Vincent's world. Nothing came without a price. And kindness from a man like him usually meant expectations she wasn't prepared to meet. The situation became more complicated when she started developing genuine feelings for Vincent beyond gratitude and fear. She found herself looking forward to their brief conversations and feeling disappointed on nights when he wasn't at the casino. His protective presence made her feel safer than she had in years, but it also made her vulnerable in ways she didn't fully understand. Everything changed on a rainy Thursday night in October. The casino was quieter than usual due to the weather, and Maria was finishing her cleaning routine earlier than normal. She was wiping down the bar in the VIP lounge when she heard voices coming from Vincent's private meeting room. The door was slightly ajar, and she could see Vincent sitting across from a woman Maria didn't recognize. The woman was stunning, tall, blonde, and dressed in an expensive red dress that hugged her curves perfectly. She leaned forward as she spoke, her hand resting on Vincent's arm in a gesture that was clearly intimate. "Vincent, darling," the woman purred in a sultry voice with a slight European accent. "It's been too long since we've had time alone together." Maria felt an unexpected stab of jealousy pierce through her chest. She knew she had no right to feel this way about Vincent. He wasn't hers, and she was just an employee under his protection. But watching this beautiful woman touch him so familiarly made her realize how deep her feelings had grown. "Isabella," Vincent replied, his tone neutral. "I thought you were in Milan indefinitely." Isabella laughed, a sound like tinkling bells. "Business brought me back to the city, and I wanted to see you, of course. We have so much to catch up on." Maria tried to focus on her cleaning, but she couldn't help stealing glances at the couple. Isabella was clearly someone from Vincent's past, perhaps an ex-girlfriend or former associate. The way she looked at him with predatory confidence suggested she was used to getting whatever she wanted. "I assume this isn't just a social visit," Vincent said, leaning back in his chair and creating distance between them. Isabella's smile faltered slightly. "Can't a woman visit an old friend without ulterior motives?" "Not in my experience," Vincent replied dryly. The conversation continued. But Maria couldn't make out the details over the sound of her own heartbeat. She forced herself to finish cleaning the bar and move to the next area, trying to ignore the jealousy burning in her chest. As she worked, Maria couldn't shake the image of Isabella's perfectly manicured hand on Vincent's arm. She wondered about their history together and whether Isabella's unexpected appearance would change anything about her own situation. The thought of losing Vincent's protection terrified her, but the thought of losing whatever connection they had developed terrified her even more. The evening stretched on with Isabella remaining at Vincent's side, laughing at his comments and finding excuses to touch his hand or shoulder. Maria watched from across the room as other casino patrons noticed the beautiful woman commanding Vincent's attention. She felt invisible again, just like before the parking garage incident. But now the invisibility stung in a way it never had before. When her shift finally ended at 6 in the morning, Maria gathered her things and headed toward the employee exit. She was surprised to find Vincent waiting by the door instead of one of his usual bodyguards. "I'll drive you home tonight," he said simply. Maria nodded, not trusting her voice. They walked to his car in silence, the early morning air crisp against her skin. Vincent opened the passenger door for her, something his bodyguards never did, and she slid into the leather seat. The drive to her apartment building was quiet except for the hum of the engine and the early morning radio playing softly in the background. Maria stared out the window at the empty streets, wondering what had prompted Vincent to drive her himself and whether it had anything to do with Isabella's visit. When they arrived at her building, Vincent didn't immediately unlock the doors. Instead, he turned to face her, his dark eyes studying her expression in the dim light. "Is everything all right?" he asked. "You seem distracted tonight." Maria felt heat rise to her cheeks. "I'm fine, just tired." Vincent continued to watch her for a long moment. "If something is bothering you, you can tell me. Part of protecting you means knowing when something is wrong." The gentle concern in his voice nearly broke her resolve. She wanted to tell him about the jealousy eating at her, about how watching him with Isabella had made her realize her feelings went far beyond gratitude. But she also knew that admitting such things could destroy everything between them. "Really, I'm fine," she said quietly. "Thank you for the ride home." Vincent nodded slowly, though his expression suggested he didn't entirely believe her. "Get some rest. I'll see you tonight." As Maria climbed the stairs to her apartment, she couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted. Isabella's arrival had forced her to confront emotions she had been trying to suppress, and she wasn't sure how much longer she could pretend that working for Vincent Romano was just a job. She fell asleep that morning thinking about dark eyes and gentle questions, unaware that her world was about to become much more complicated than she could possibly imagine. Isabella's presence at the Golden Palace became a regular occurrence over the next 2 weeks. She appeared every few nights, dressed in designer clothes and dripping with expensive jewelry. Her laugh echoed through the VIP section as she entertained Vincent and his associates with stories from her travels across Europe. Maria learned from conversations between the staff that Isabella Moretti came from a powerful Italian crime family. She had been Vincent's fiancée 5 years ago before disappearing to handle family business in Milan. Her sudden return to the city had everyone speculating about her intentions, especially since Vincent had remained single during her absence. The other employees whispered about Isabella's beauty and sophistication, comparing her to the parade of women who usually tried to capture Vincent's attention. Unlike those women, Isabella had history with Vincent. She knew his preferences, his moods, and exactly how to make him laugh. Watching them together was like watching two people perform a familiar dance. Maria found herself growing increasingly miserable as she witnessed their interactions. Isabella would lean close to whisper in Vincent's ear during business meetings, her red lips nearly brushing his skin. She would place her hand on his chest when making a point, her diamond bracelet catching the light. Vincent didn't pull away from these touches, though Maria noticed he didn't exactly encourage them either. The worst part was how Isabella seemed to notice everything and everyone around Vincent, including Maria. Her ice blue eyes would follow Maria's movements as she cleaned nearby tables, and there was something calculating in her gaze that made Maria deeply uncomfortable. One evening, while Maria was emptying ashtrays in the VIP lounge, Isabella approached her directly for the first time. "You're the cleaning girl Vincent has been protecting," Isabella said, her accent making even casual conversation sound elegant. Maria looked up from her work, meeting Isabella's penetrating stare. "I'm just doing my job, miss." Isabella smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Of course you are. Vincent always was protective of his employees. Tell me, how long have you worked here?" 2 years, Maria replied carefully, sensing this conversation had a purpose beyond small talk. 2 years, Isabella repeated thoughtfully. "And Vincent only started protecting you recently, yes? After someone from the De Luca family tried to recruit you as a spy?" Maria's blood ran cold. She hadn't told anyone except Vincent about the parking garage incident, which meant Isabella had gotten her information directly from him. The realization that Vincent shared details about her with Isabella stung more than she expected. "I don't know anything about family business," Maria said quietly. "I just clean tables and empty trash." Isabella's laugh was like broken glass. "Oh, sweet girl, everyone knows something in this business. The question is whether that knowledge makes you valuable or dangerous." Before Maria could respond, Vincent's voice cut through the tension. "Isabella." His tone carried a warning as he approached them from across the room. "I'm sure Maria has work to finish." Isabella turned toward Vincent with an innocent expression. "We were just getting acquainted. I wanted to meet the employee who's been receiving so much of your personal attention lately." Vincent's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Maria's safety is my responsibility. Nothing more." "Of course," Isabella agreed smoothly. "Though I have to say, it's unusual for you to personally escort employees to and from work. People might get the wrong impression about your motivations." The air between Vincent and Isabella crackled with unspoken tension. Maria could sense years of complicated history in their silent exchange, and she felt like an unwelcome intruder in their private drama. "Excuse me," Maria said quietly, gathering her cleaning supplies. "I'll finish this section later." As she walked away, Maria heard Vincent say something to Isabella in rapid Italian, his voice low and sharp. Isabella's response was equally intense, though Maria couldn't understand the words. She could feel both of their eyes on her as she disappeared into the main casino floor. The next few days brought a noticeable change in the atmosphere at the Golden Palace. Vincent seemed more tense than usual, snapping at his associates and spending long hours in private meetings. Isabella continued to appear nightly, but there was less laughter and more serious conversation between them. Maria overheard fragments of their discussions while working nearby. They spoke about business partnerships, territorial agreements, and family obligations. It became clear that Isabella's return wasn't purely romantic. She was representing her family's interests in some kind of negotiation with Vincent's organization. The situation became more complicated when Maria noticed other changes in Vincent's behavior toward her. He started asking more personal questions about her family and background. He inquired about her mother's health and her brother's progress in school. These conversations felt different from his earlier protective interest. They seemed designed to gather information about her life outside the casino. Maria began to wonder if Vincent's protection had always been motivated by something other than kindness. Perhaps he had suspected from the beginning that she might be valuable to his enemies, and keeping her close was a strategic decision rather than a compassionate one. Her suspicions seemed confirmed when Vincent's bodyguard Tony mentioned that background checks had been run on her entire family. Someone wanted to know everything about Maria Santos, from her financial situation to her social connections to her daily routines. The knowledge that her life was being scrutinized from every angle made Maria feel exposed and vulnerable. She realized that accepting Vincent's protection had drawn her deeper into his world than she had understood at the time. Now her family was under surveillance, her movements were monitored, and her conversations were probably being reported to Vincent or his associates. Despite her growing unease, Maria found herself unable to distance herself emotionally from Vincent. If anything, his increased attention made her feelings for him stronger, even as her rational mind warned her to be careful. She caught herself looking forward to their brief conversations and feeling jealous when Isabella monopolized his time. Everything came to a head on a busy Saturday night when the casino hosted a high-stakes poker tournament. Wealthy players from across the region gathered for the event, and the Golden Palace buzzed with excitement and tension. Extra security patrolled the floors, and Vincent moved between tables like a king surveying his kingdom. Isabella appeared that evening in a stunning black dress that turned heads throughout the casino. She positioned herself at Vincent's side, like a queen claiming her throne, greeting important guests and charming potential business partners. Maria watched from across the room as Isabella whispered something in Vincent's ear that made him smile. The first genuine smile she had seen from him in days. As the evening progressed, Maria noticed a man she didn't recognize entering the VIP section. He was tall and lean with salt and pepper hair and expensive clothes that couldn't hide the predatory way he moved through the crowd. Something about him immediately put her on edge. The stranger approached Vincent's table and spoke briefly with Tony before being allowed to join the group. Maria could see Vincent's posture change as the man sat down. His shoulders squared, and his hand moved almost imperceptibly toward his jacket. Isabella's expression also shifted, becoming more guarded as she studied the newcomer. Maria continued her work while keeping an eye on the situation. The stranger seemed to be discussing business with Vincent, but their conversation appeared tense. Other patrons at nearby tables began to notice the atmosphere and quietly moved away from the area. After about 20 minutes, the stranger stood to leave. As he walked past Maria's station at the bar, she heard him say quietly, "Think carefully about our discussion, Romano. My employer's patience has limits." The man's exit was followed by a heavy silence at Vincent's table. Isabella leaned close to him and spoke urgently in Italian, while Tony and the other associates exchanged worried glances. Whatever the stranger had proposed, it clearly wasn't good news for Vincent's organization. Maria tried to focus on her cleaning, but she couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had just happened. The stranger's veiled threat and Vincent's obvious tension suggested that the Romano family was facing some kind of pressure or ultimatum. Her concerns were validated when Vincent abruptly stood and announced that he was leaving for the evening. This was unusual, Vincent typically stayed at the casino until closing time during major events. Isabella immediately gathered her purse and followed him, her heels clicking against the marble floor as they headed toward the private exit. As they passed Maria's station, Vincent paused and caught her eye. "Tony will drive you home tonight," he said curtly. "Don't wait for the usual time. Leave within the hour." The urgency in his voice sent a chill through Maria's spine. Something was definitely wrong, and Vincent wanted her out of the casino as quickly as possible. Maria nodded and began packing up her supplies immediately. She worked quickly, her hands trembling slightly as she folded cleaning cloths and organized bottles of polish. Other staff members noticed her early departure but didn't ask questions. Everyone at the Golden Palace understood that when Vincent Romano gave an order, you followed it without discussion. Tony appeared at her side exactly 1 hour later, his expression more serious than usual. They walked to the parking garage in silence, but Maria could sense his heightened alertness as he scanned their surroundings. "Is everything okay?" Maria asked as they reached his car. Tony's response was non-committal. "Boss wants you home safe tonight, that's all I need to know." The drive to her apartment was tense, with Tony frequently checking his mirrors and taking a route that included several unexpected turns. Maria realized he was watching for potential followers, a precaution that hadn't been necessary since the original parking garage incident weeks ago. When they arrived at her building, Tony walked her to the front door instead of remaining in the car. "Keep your doors locked tonight," he advised. "If anything seems unusual, any strange calls, unexpected visitors, anything at all, you call the number Vincent gave you immediately." Maria nodded, though her stomach was churning with anxiety. "Tony, what's happening?" He hesitated for a moment before answering. "Old debt's coming due, sweetheart. Vincent's handled worse, but until things settle down, everyone needs to be extra careful." That night, Maria lay awake listening to every sound in her apartment building. Car doors slamming, footsteps in the hallway, and voices from neighboring apartments all seemed potentially threatening. She checked the locks on her door 3 times and kept Vincent's phone number within reach on her nightstand. When morning came without incident, Maria felt some relief, but the anxiety lingered throughout the day. She found herself jumping at unexpected noises and watching for unfamiliar faces in her neighborhood. The sense of safety she had built over the past few weeks had evaporated in a single evening. That evening, when Maria arrived for work, she immediately noticed increased security throughout the casino. Additional bodyguards stood at strategic positions, and Vincent's usual table in the VIP section was surrounded by more associates than normal. The atmosphere felt charged, like the air before a thunderstorm. Vincent appeared more controlled than ever, his movements precise, and his attention focused entirely on business discussions. Isabella sat beside him, wearing a navy dress that was more conservative than her usual attire, suggesting that even she understood the seriousness of the current situation. Maria worked quietly, trying to remain invisible while staying alert to any signs of trouble. The increased tension affected everyone. Dealers spoke in hushed voices, waitresses moved more quickly between tables, and even the patrons seemed to sense that something was different about the Golden Palace that night. Around midnight, Maria was cleaning near the entrance to Vincent's private office when she overheard a phone conversation that made her blood run cold. "I understand your position," Vincent was saying, his voice deadly calm. "But you misunderstand mine if you think threats will change my mind." There was a pause as the person on the other end responded. "No," Vincent continued. "I won't be reconsidering anything. My answer is final." Another pause, longer this time. "Then we have nothing more to discuss," Vincent concluded. "But understand this. If you move against me or mine, the consequences will be permanent." The call ended with what sounded like Vincent slamming the phone down. Maria quickly moved away from the office, her heart pounding as she processed what she had heard. Someone was threatening Vincent, and he had just declared war in response. The rest of her shift passed without major incident, but Maria could feel the tension building like pressure in a sealed container. Vincent's associates came and went throughout the night, bringing updates and receiving instructions in hushed conversations. Isabella remained at his side, occasionally offering input that Vincent considered seriously. When closing time arrived, Maria was surprised to see Vincent himself waiting by the employee exit instead of one of his drivers. "I'll take you home," he said simply. They walked to his car in silence, but Maria could see the exhaustion in Vincent's posture despite his controlled exterior. Once they were driving through the empty streets, she gathered the courage to speak. "Vincent," she said quietly, "is my family in danger?" He glanced at her before returning his attention to the road. "Not directly. This situation involves old business relationships that have nothing to do with you. But the extra security, the early dismissal last night—" "Precautions," Vincent said firmly. "When tensions rise in my world, everyone around me becomes a potential target. I won't let that happen to you." Maria felt a flutter of warmth at his protective words, but it was quickly overshadowed by the implications of what he was saying. "How long will this continue?" "Until it's resolved," Vincent replied. "One way or another." The finality in his voice suggested that resolution might come at a high cost. Maria understood that she was witnessing Vincent preparing for some kind of conflict that could change everything about their current situation. When they arrived at her apartment building, Vincent surprised her by getting out of the car and walking her to the door. He stood close to her in the dim light from the building's entrance, and Maria could smell his cologne mixed with the faint scent of cigarette smoke from the casino. "Maria," he said, his voice softer than she had ever heard it, "I want you to know that protecting you isn't just about business anymore." Before she could respond to this unexpected admission, Vincent's phone buzzed with what was clearly an urgent message. His expression hardened as he read the text. "I have to go," he said abruptly. "Remember, anything unusual, you call me immediately." He was already walking back toward his car before Maria could process what had just happened. Vincent Romano had essentially admitted that his feelings for her went beyond professional obligation, and then disappeared into the night to handle some kind of crisis that could put them both in deadly danger. As Maria climbed the stairs to her apartment, she realized that whatever had been building between them was about to be tested in ways she couldn't imagine. The world Vincent inhabited was about to become even more dangerous, and she was no longer sure whether being under his protection was the safest place to be or the most dangerous position she could possibly occupy. Her phone rang just as she reached her door, Vincent's number flashing on the screen. "Don't go to work tomorrow night," he said without preamble when she answered. "Stay home until you hear from me." The line went dead before she could ask any questions, leaving Maria standing in her hallway with a growing sense of dread about what was coming next. Maria spent 3 anxious days waiting at home while news reports spoke of mysterious explosions at waterfront warehouses and unexplained fires at several businesses around the city. She knew these incidents were connected to Vincent's world, but she had no way of knowing if he was safe or if the danger was moving closer to her own doorstep. On the 4th day, Isabella appeared at Maria's apartment building. Maria was returning from the grocery store when she spotted the elegant blonde woman leaning against a black sedan parked across the street. Isabella wore dark sunglasses and a cream-colored coat that probably cost more than Maria made in 6 months. When she saw Maria approaching the building, she crossed the street with predatory grace. "We need to talk," Isabella said without preamble. Maria's hands tightened on her grocery bags. "I don't think we have anything to discuss." Isabella's smile was sharp. "Oh, but we do. You see, Vincent has been making some very poor decisions lately, and I believe you're the reason why." "I don't know what you mean." Of course you do. Isabella stepped closer, and Maria could smell her expensive perfume. Vincent turned down a very lucrative business arrangement with some powerful people. When I asked him why, he said he couldn't risk the safety of someone important to him, someone whose involvement would put an innocent person in danger. Maria felt her cheeks burn. He didn't say that. He didn't need to spell it out, Isabella continued. Vincent has never refused a profitable deal because of emotional attachments. Until now. Until you. The implications hit Maria like a physical blow. If Vincent had rejected some kind of business proposal to protect her, he might have made dangerous enemies in the process. The recent violence around the city suddenly made more sense. "What do you want?" Maria asked quietly. Isabella removed her sunglasses, revealing ice-blue eyes that were completely devoid of warmth. "I want you to understand your position. Vincent is risking everything he's built because he thinks he's protecting you. But the truth is, you're making him weak. And weak men don't survive very long in our world." "I never asked for his protection." "No, but you accepted it. And now you're accepting his feelings too, aren't you?" Isabella's voice turned venomous. "I can see it in the way you look at him, the way you light up when he speaks to you." "You actually think someone like Vincent Romano could have a real relationship with someone like you?" Each word felt like a slap. Maria knew there was truth in what Isabella was saying. She had developed feelings for Vincent that went far beyond gratitude, and she had begun to hope that his protectiveness meant something deeper. "Vincent and I have history," Isabella continued. 5 years of history that some cleaning girl can't erase in a few months. I know him in ways you never will. I know his business, his family, his world. You're just a distraction. If that's true, then why are you here?" Maria found her voice, though it shook slightly. "If I'm just a distraction, why do you see me as a threat?" Isabella's composure cracked slightly. "Because distractions can become obsessions with men like Vincent. And obsessions make them do stupid things, things that get people killed." Before Maria could respond, both women heard the sound of approaching cars. 2 black sedans turned onto the street, moving fast and stopping directly in front of Maria's building. Vincent emerged from the first car, followed by Tony and 2 other associates Maria recognized from the casino. Vincent's expression was thunderous as he spotted Isabella standing with Maria. He crossed the street in quick strides, his coat billowing behind him like a storm cloud. "What the hell are you doing here?" he demanded, his voice low and dangerous. Isabella straightened her shoulders and faced him without flinching. "Having a conversation that was long overdue." "About what?" "About how your newest obsession is going to get you killed," Isabella shot back. "About how you're throwing away everything we've built because you think you're in love with some nobody who doesn't understand your world." Vincent's hands clenched into fists at his sides. "Watch yourself, Isabella. Or what? You'll threaten me too? Just like you threatened the Castellanos when they offered you the partnership deal? Just like you threatened anyone who suggested that your precious cleaning girl might be more liability than asset." Maria felt the blood drain from her face. The Castellanos were one of the most powerful crime families on the East Coast. If Vincent had made enemies of them because of her, the consequences could be catastrophic. "Vincent," Maria said quietly, "is this true?" He turned to her, and she could see the conflict in his dark eyes. "It's complicated." "It's simple," Isabella interjected. "The Castellanos wanted to use your position at the casino as part of a money laundering operation. When Vincent refused to give them access to you, they took it as an insult to their family honor. Now there's a price on Vincent's head, and war is coming whether he wants it or not." Maria staggered backward as the full weight of the situation hit her. Vincent had started a war with one of the most dangerous families in the country because he wouldn't let them use her as a pawn in their illegal activities. People were already dying because of his decision to protect her. "I need to leave," Maria whispered. I need to get out of the city, away from all of this. No, Vincent said immediately. Running won't solve anything now. The Castellanos know about you, which means you're safest here where I can protect you. But people are dying because of me, Maria's voice broke. How many more people will get hurt because you won't let them use me for money laundering? Vincent stepped closer to her, ignoring Isabella's presence completely. Look at me, Maria. None of this is your fault. I made a choice to protect you because you matter to me. I made that choice knowing exactly what it might cost. Why? Maria asked, tears forming in her eyes. Why would you risk so much for someone like me? Because somewhere between protecting you and getting to know you, I fell in love with you, Vincent admitted, his voice rough with emotion. And I don't sacrifice people I love for business deals. Isabella made a sound of disgust. How touching. Too bad your grand romantic gesture is going to get everyone around you killed. Vincent whirled toward Isabella, his control finally snapping. Enough! You came back here thinking you could walk right back into my life and my business like nothing had changed. But everything has changed. I've changed. What Maria and I have is real, not some arranged marriage between crime families. What you have is a fantasy, Isabella spat. And fantasies don't survive in our world. The Castellanos will come for her, Vincent. If not today, then tomorrow or next week. They'll use her against you. And when they're done, they'll kill her just to prove a point. Is your romantic obsession worth her life? The question hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Maria could see the pain in Vincent's face as Isabella's words hit their mark. He loved her. But that love had made them both targets in a war that showed no mercy to innocence. There has to be another way, Maria said quietly. Some kind of compromise or negotiation. Isabella laughed harshly. Naive little girl. There are no negotiations when family honor is involved. Vincent insulted the Castellanos by refusing their offer. In their minds, they gave him an opportunity to partner with them, and he essentially told them he valued some cleaning girl more than their friendship. That's not something they can let slide. Vincent's phone buzzed with an incoming message. He read it quickly, and his expression grew even darker. What is it? Tony asked from his position near the cars. Marco Castellano wants a meeting, Vincent replied grimly. Tonight, neutral territory. Isabella's face went pale. Marco never handles negotiations personally, unless he's planning something permanent. Maria didn't need anyone to explain what permanent meant in this context. Marco Castellano was planning to kill Vincent, and probably anyone associated with him. You can't go, Maria said immediately. It's obviously a trap. I don't have a choice, Vincent replied. If I don't show up, he'll interpret it as cowardice and the war will escalate. At least this way, there's a chance for dialogue. There's no chance, Isabella said flatly. Marco's already decided how this ends. The only question is whether he kills you quickly or takes his time. Vincent studied Isabella's face carefully. You seem to know a lot about Marco's intentions. Something shifted in Isabella's expression, a flicker of guilt or fear that she quickly tried to hide. I hear things. My family has connections throughout the region. What aren't you telling me? Vincent's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. Isabella glanced around at the associates surrounding them, clearly calculating her options. The meeting tonight, it wasn't Marco's idea. My family suggested it to him as a way to resolve the situation cleanly. The betrayal hit Vincent like a physical blow. Your family set this up. They're trying to protect you, Isabella said quickly. If you'd just come back to Milan with me, we could disappear until things calm down here. We could start over, rebuild somewhere else. And leave Maria to face the Castellanos alone? Vincent's voice was deadly quiet now, the kind of calm that preceded explosive violence. She's not your responsibility anymore, Isabella pleaded. Choose survival, Vincent. Choose me. Choose the life we planned before all this started. Vincent was silent for a long moment, his dark eyes moving between Isabella and Maria. The weight of the decision was visible on his face. He could save himself by abandoning Maria, or he could face almost certain death trying to protect her. Maria made the choice for him. "Go with her," she said quietly. "Go to Milan and be safe. I'll figure out how to handle the Castellanos on my own." "Absolutely not," Vincent replied immediately. "Vincent, please." Maria's voice broke. "I can't live with knowing that you died because of me. If leaving with Isabella keeps you alive, then that's what you should do." "And what about you?" Vincent demanded. "What happens to you when I'm gone?" Maria tried to keep her voice steady. "I'll disappear, change my name, move to another city, start over somewhere the Castellanos can't find me." "They'll hunt you down," Isabella said bluntly. "Running will only delay the inevitable." Vincent stepped closer to Maria, his hands framing her face gently. "I'm not leaving you. Whatever happens tonight, we face it together." "Together?" Isabella's voice turned shrill. "You're choosing suicide over survival, and for what? Some cleaning girl you've known for a few months?" "I'm choosing love over fear," Vincent replied without taking his eyes off Maria. "Something you never understood." Isabella's face contorted with rage and jealousy. "Fine. Throw your life away for this nobody. But don't expect me to watch you destroy yourself." She turned and stalked toward her car, but paused before getting in. "When you're both dead, Vincent, remember that you chose this. You could have had everything: power, security, a real partnership with someone who understands your world. Instead, you chose a fantasy that's going to get you killed." Isabella drove away in a screech of tires, leaving Vincent, Maria, and his associates standing in the middle of the street. "What now, boss?" Tony asked. Vincent was quiet for a long moment, still holding Maria's face in his hands. "Now we prepare for war," he said finally, "and we do whatever it takes to win." That evening, Vincent transformed the Golden Palace into a fortress. Armed associates positioned themselves at every entrance, security cameras monitored every corridor, and loyal employees were sent home for their own safety. The casino remained open to maintain appearances, but everyone understood that tonight would determine the future of Vincent's organization. Maria insisted on staying, despite Vincent's attempts to convince her to hide somewhere safe. "If this is happening because of me, then I'm not running away," she said firmly. "We face it together, like you said." The meeting with Marco Castellano was scheduled for midnight in the casino's private dining room. Vincent arrived 15 minutes early with Tony and 2 other bodyguards, while Maria waited in his office with instructions to lock the door and not come out unless Vincent himself told her it was safe. At exactly midnight, Marco Castellano walked into the Golden Palace like he owned it. He was a thin man in his 50s with silver hair and cold gray eyes that seemed to catalog every detail around him. He brought 4 bodyguards who looked like they could handle any situation with extreme prejudice. "Vincent," Marco said cordially as he took his seat across from him. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me." "Marco," Vincent replied evenly. "I assume you have something to discuss." "Indeed I do." Marco folded his hands on the table. "You've put me in a very difficult position with your recent decisions. I wasn't aware that my business decisions affected your family." Marco smiled thinly. "Come now, Vincent. When you refuse a partnership offer from the Castellanos, it sends a message to other families about our influence and reach. People begin to think we're weak, that our proposals can be rejected without consequence." "Your proposal involved putting one of my employees at risk," Vincent said carefully. "I couldn't agree to that." "One employee," Marco repeated. "One cleaning girl who means nothing to anyone except apparently you. And for her sake, you're willing to insult my family and risk a war that could destroy everything you've built." Vincent's jaw tightened. "That cleaning girl is under my protection." "Protection," Marco mused. Is that what you call it? Because from where I sit, it looks more like obsession. An obsession that's clouding your judgment and making you weak. The insult hung in the air between them like a challenge. Vincent's associates tensed, their hands moving closer to their weapons. Marco's men responded in kind, and suddenly the private dining room felt like a powder keg waiting for a spark. "Careful, Marco," Vincent said quietly. "You're in my house." "And you're outnumbered," Marco replied. "But I didn't come here to start a fight. I came here to offer you one last chance to reconsider your position." "What kind of offer?" Marco leaned forward. "Give us the girl. Let us use her position here for our money laundering operation like we originally requested. In exchange, we forget about the insult to our family honor, and you keep running your casino without interference." "And if I refuse?" "Then this conversation ends badly for everyone in this room." Vincent was quiet for a long moment, his dark eyes never leaving Marco's face. "I need to think about it." "You have 5 minutes," Marco said, checking his expensive watch. "After that, the offer expires permanently." Vincent stood slowly and walked toward the door of the dining room. "I'll be right back." He made his way to his office, his mind racing as he considered his options. He could give Marco what he wanted and save his organization, but it would mean sacrificing Maria to criminals who would use her and eventually dispose of her. Or he could refuse and face a war he might not win, potentially getting everyone he cared about killed in the process. When he reached his office, he found Maria waiting for him behind the locked door. "How did it go?" she asked immediately. Vincent looked at her, really looked at her, taking in her worried brown eyes, the way she twisted her hands nervously, the determination in her posture despite her obvious fear. In that moment, he realized that no business deal, no matter how profitable or dangerous, was worth sacrificing the woman he loved. "He wants me to hand you over," Vincent said quietly. "In exchange for peace." Maria's face went white, but her voice remained steady. "And what did you tell him?" Vincent moved closer to her, his hands settling on her shoulders. "I told him I needed to think about it. But I already know my answer. Vincent, if giving them what they want will save your organization—" "No," he cut her off firmly. "I'm not trading you for anything, ever." Before Maria could respond, they heard shouting from the casino floor, followed by the unmistakable sound of gunfire. Vincent's 5 minutes were apparently up. "Stay here," Vincent ordered, pulling a gun from his desk drawer. "No matter what happens, don't come out until I come back for you. Vincent, wait!" But he was already gone. Rushing back toward the private dining room, where his fate and the fate of everyone he cared about would be decided in the next few minutes. Maria locked the door behind him and sank into his desk chair, her heart pounding as the sounds of violence echoed through the casino. Outside, Vincent Romano was fighting for their future, while she could only wait and pray that love would prove stronger than the brutal logic of the criminal world that sought to destroy them both. The battle for the Golden Palace had begun, and by morning, everything would be different.